Well, let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about things that we aren't talking about. The Israeli Defense Force is being defeated in Gaza as we speak. Its forces are being closed with and destroyed by Hamas. Hamas has not lost the will to resist. Hamas continues to resist, and this has a devastating impact on the morale of the Israeli forces. To show you the depths to which Israel has sunk as a nation state, they had some reservists killed in Hezbollah by Hezbollah in southern Lebanon this past week. At the eulogy of one of these reservists, who was from a family of West Bank settlers, the following was said. They were praising him because when Israel went into Gaza, he went in there saying that he would kill every Arab man, woman, and child he met. And they were saying this is a good thing. And they said he did. He went in there and he killed. They said he was such a lighthearted guy because when the men in his unit were down, he blew up homes, Arab homes, blew them up. So the explosions would improve the morale of the IDF forces. And of course, he's a man who committed murder in the past. He shot a Palestinian settler who was resisting the theft of his land with his olive groves on there. He murdered the man using a weapon provided by the Israeli Defense Force. He was arrested but acquitted, and even with this on his record, he was allowed to join this reserve unit, go into Gaza to commit additional crimes. Now he finally met his justice in Hezbollah. Hezbollah delivered justice in southern Lebanon. But the point is, the idea that Israel is possessing the most moral army in the world is ridiculous. Israel possesses the most morally corrupt military in the world, and it's paying them. They're paying the price, because as we speak, there's a retired Israeli general who gave an interview last week in the Israeli news, and he said that he's watching the destruction of Israel before his very eyes. He says the Israeli Defense Force cannot continue to do this. They haven't accomplished a single objective. Not a single objective has been accomplished. They haven't defeated Hamas. Hamas still exists politically and militarily and is resisting very effectively. They haven't done anything in southern Lebanon. They're supposed to be 20 kilometers in on a 100-kilometer frontage. They've advanced a couple hundred meters into southern Lebanon, and they're getting the snot kicked out of them. A major attack last night was repulsed by Hezbollah. The forces retreating from the hill that they were trying to seize went into a valley where they continue to be ambushed. The Israelis are evacuating the casualties as we speak under fire. This is the reality. Every square inch of southern Lebanon is a potential ambush zone that has been reconnoitered in advance by Hezbollah. They know exactly what they're doing. The concept that Hezbollah is without leadership is absurd. So they're failing to accomplish their task. They're failing to suppress Palestinian unrest in the West Bank. It's increasing. The level of resistance is increasing. It could become yet a third domestic front. They can't stop the Houthi from shutting down the Israeli economy. The world hates Israel. The world hates Israel. The world hates Israel. This man made that point over and over again. He said, we have lost the world. The world is against us, and we will never get them back. And Iran is defeating Israel. Israel has lost any ability to deter Iran. On top of all this, Israel is falling in on itself. The fact that Israel would allow a eulogy of this nature to take place publicly and be recorded in Haaretz and other Israeli newspapers shows the depth to which Israel has sunk. Israel is a nation without a moral compass, and now it's dividing, it's falling in on itself. Prior to October 7th, the Israeli president had said that Israel is on the verge of an outright civil war, not civil conflict, not civil disobedience, civil war with armed Israelis fighting armed Israelis. And that general said that's happening right now. Israel is breaking up into factions. They're going to fall in on each other. Israel will consume itself. So what the hell do you want to talk about in Gaza again? Because the narrative you're putting forward, and I'm not blaming you, is a Western narrative. Yes, Israel's committing a crime. Yes, it's outlawed UNRWA. Yes, the United Nations will probably let them get away with it. Yes, Israel is slaughtering Palestinians on a daily basis. But this is part of the formula that leads to the total collapse of Israel, because everything I just mentioned only certifies that Israel is a lawless nation operating not just above the law, but with total disregard of the law, an apartheid state that is committing genocide led by mass murderers that nobody in the world respects. How much longer Israel can sustain this is unknown. The general wasn't optimistic. He was saying that this collapse could happen at any time. So yeah, I know what the headlines say, but I just told you the truth about what's happening to Israel. Israel is a defeated nation led by a corrupt, defeated people, led by an impotent, defeated leader, and their only future is defeat. No, first of all, the U.S. doesn't. The U.S. has been playing this game in Lebanon for some time now. Find me one instance of American success. I mean, we can take this back as far as you want to, but we sent Marines in. We did that back in the early 1980s, ended up with the destroyed barracks, 241 dead American Marines and soldiers, and we fled Lebanon with our tails tucked between our legs. Excuse me. We shelled Lebanon with the U.S. New Jersey. We brought in aircraft, shot down, had pilots taken prisoner, had American sailors taken off of airplanes and executed by Palestinian terrorists because of this activity. We condoned an Israeli invasion and occupation of Lebanon. We provided Israel with the weapons to do this, only to watch Israel get slapped around by Hezbollah and ultimately evicted in 2000. We facilitated the ongoing slaughter of Lebanese civilians. So we supported the Israeli attack against Hezbollah in Lebanon in 2006, only to watch Hezbollah defeat them yet again. The United States hasn't had a single diplomatic success of note. We've built one of the largest embassies in the entire region there. And what does that tell you? We're not there to do diplomacy. We're there to spy. And it's a CIA, headquarters for the region, the Department of Defense headquarters for the region, intelligence collection platform. The last thing we do from Lebanon is diplomacy. In fact, all Middle East diplomacies run out of the nation just a little bit to its south, Israel. If you think an American ambassador to Lebanon can say anything without having it cleared through the American embassy in Jerusalem first, you don't know anything about how American policy works. And so we're there we're playing stupid games. Remember, the stupid games we're playing in Lebanon are an extension of the stupid games we played in Syria. How has that worked out? We've been trying to get rid of Bashar al-Assad for how long now, with how many billions of dollars? That didn't work out very well, and it's going to fail in Lebanon as well. The notion that Hezbollah is defeated is absurd. I mean, yes, Nasrallah was killed. Was that a damaging blow to Hezbollah? 100%. There's no doubt about it. It hurt. And did Hezbollah suffer leadership losses? 100%. I mean, the pagers went off, gutted middle management for temporarily, but Hezbollah is an organization that's designed to function under duress. And so, as Hezbollah has said, every chief has a deputy already identified, and that deputy has a deputy, and that deputy has a deputy, and they all know how to do the jobs they're supposed to do. So when Israel can kill whoever they want, there's somebody in the organization that will immediately take their place without disruption, who knows exactly what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, who needs to do it, and what they need to do it with. And just take a look at the success of Hezbollah's defense of the South. They haven't buckled at all. Israel's running into a buzzsaw, a chainsaw. It ain't Hezbollah running into an Israeli chainsaw. The whole purpose of going into Lebanon was supposed to initially to get Hezbollah to withdraw so that 60,000 Israeli soldiers can return to their villages. Not a single one of them is returning to their village. Not now, and maybe not ever. And what's happening is tens of thousands of more Israelis have to flee their homes because Hezbollah continues to maintain the capacity to shell Israeli villages. And Hezbollah, look at what Hezbollah has done. Instead of repeating the atrocities of the Israelis by targeting civilian areas, they focus instead on Israeli troop buildups in these areas. They sent out a warning the other day to Kiryat Shimona, said, get out of there, not because we're going to destroy your town, but because the Israeli military is assembling the reinforcements they're sending up in your area. We're going to kill them, and they have. I mean, the Israelis can't assemble troops without Hezbollah raining death and destruction down on them. The Israeli general that gave the interview says that the number of desertions that's taking place is in the dozens of percentage points. Dozens. That means at least 20, up to 24%, depending on the unit, desertion rate. 12% is the norm. Reservists are just refusing to show up. People who go home are refusing to come back. They don't want to go to southern Lebanon because that's a graveyard, and they know it, and they damn well don't want to go to Gaza because they're fighting over the same territory over and over and over and over again. It's like, some Americans who fought in Vietnam. They go in and they clear the Ashau Valley in 1967. They come back on the next tour in 68 and they're clearing the Ashau Valley all over again. Wait a minute, didn't we take that village last year? Yep, but then the enemy got it back and now we're going to take it again. And in 1970, they're still clearing the Ashau Valley. In 1972, when they left, they're still clearing the Ashau Valley. You know how demoralizing that is to fight over the same terrain over and over and over again and get the exact same result, dead Americans, wounded Americans, knowing that at the end of the day, you're going to pull back and the enemy's going to reoccupy no matter what. That's what the Israelis are facing in Gaza, but the Israeli military isn't mentally prepared for this. We're talking about some of the soldiers who are least capable of surviving sustained conflict in the world. The Israeli soldier, they're just not built for this sort of thing. They're not an organization that's built to absorb casualties. They are emotionally wrecks right now. And normally I have sympathy. I mean, here in the United States, we talk about, 26, 27 veterans take their life every day in the United States, for PTSD or for other reasons. The suicide rate is insanely high. Israel is going to have a similarly high percentage. I won't shed a single tear for any of those Israeli soldiers. Blow your brains out. I don't care. You've done horrific things. You are the literal epitome of war criminals. If you have a soul in your body, you will stop serving and you will leave Israel and you will confess your crimes to the world and beg the world's forgiveness. But the notion that we're going to feel sorry for you because you suddenly had a pang of consciousness for the stuff you did, that ain't going to happen. Israel is a deeply fractured nation right now. This is what the retired general was alluding to. You have a handful of people in Israel that will believe whatever the government tells them to believe. These are fanatics. These are truly the criminal element. Many of them are from the United States. I call them Brooklyn Jews or Long Island Jews. These are people who have gone over to Israel for the express purpose of stealing the land of Palestinians, murdering Palestinians, committing crimes against the Palestinians, knowing that they can get away with it. These are psychopaths, literal psychopaths, who are in Israel to commit crimes. And so they can't afford to turn their back on the government of Benjamin Netanyahu because his government is that which brings them relevance and power and sustainability. And so they will back him no matter what. You have another group who are just, who again, the greater Israel psychopaths. They're all psychos. There's nothing normal about any of these people. They view, non-Israelis, non-Jews as subhumans. They, in particular, the Palestinians, the Gazans, as subhumans. They say as much, and then they commit murder. They have no qualms. These are people talking about evicting millions of Palestinians from Gaza, taking over Gaza, and turning it into a Jewish paradise. These people will never change. Let's just be honest. There's only one way to change their mind, is that is to make their mind stop functioning. That generally happens with 5.56 millimeters placed right about there on the forehead. These are true genocidal psychopaths that are incompatible with modern humanity, and yet they exist in Israel in large numbers. And their continued existence poses a threat to not just Israel, but the entire region. Then you have a whole bunch of Israelis who aren't quite as psychopathic, but are willing to live off the labors of the psychopaths. That means that they will remain silent while these crimes are being committed because secretly deep inside in places where they don't like to talk about. They think it's cool to have a greater Israel. They sort of think they dig that. They think it's good. They're good with it. So they're the good Germans, the good Jews. They don't talk about it, but they know what's happening. And then there's the other ones who are there and they're trying. You see them demonstrating, you see them speaking out, but to no effect. I mean, they lack the numbers, they lack the political support both at home and abroad. It's very difficult for an opposition movement inside Israel to gain traction unless they have a corresponding opposition movement in the United States that helps feed them. And here in the United States, the American Jewish community, yes, I know people are going to point to the 500 people that shut down Columbia University and the 1,000 that did this. I'm talking about the millions of American Jews who openly advocate on behalf of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government for the ongoing genocide. I'm talking about the people who have turned their backs on their own history, who've disgraced any notion of the Holocaust. If the Israelis and the Jewish people of the world wanted the Holocaust to remain this notion, the Shoah, the catastrophe, to be something that put people into awe and fell into the mantra of never again, then why do they disgrace it so much? Why do they belittle it so much? Why do they prove that the term genocide means nothing to them? And trust me, if you can lie about the genocide or argue away the genocide that's taking place inside Gaza today, that allows you then to lie about something that to exaggerate, the past, to try and make something in the past bigger. I advise people to go read Elie Wiesel's book. I think it's called Night. He won a Pulitzer Prize for it. Turns out almost the entire book's a lie, but that book helped set in motion, cement the notion of the Nazi genocide against the Jews. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Of course, there was horrific crimes committed. I'm saying that the Israeli state has used the Holocaust industry to promote its reason to exist. And now they've taken that perversion even further by committing the very genocide they claimed was committed against them. I mean, we are talking about a nation that has lost not only its moral compass, but all reason to exist. You cannot justify the continued existence of Israel and the genocidal behaviors that it's exhibiting based upon allegations of genocide dating back to the Second World War. True or not, let's assume everything they say is true, and we know it's not, but everything they say is true. That doesn't justify what Israel's doing. But Israel's actions compel us to take a look at what happened in the past, because I'm here to tell you right now, there's a large part of this Israeli myth that is just that, a myth and a gross exaggeration. And yet you're not allowed to say that. Remember when Ahmadinejad spoke out about this? People called him a Holocaust denier. He never denied the Holocaust. I'm not denying the Holocaust. He simply said that there were a lot of people that were killed during the Second World War, and the Jews were not the majority of them. The majority of the people that died in concentration camps weren't Jewish. They were Russian. And Poles and gypsies and homosexuals and things of that nature. But, the notion that what the Nazi crimes against humanity was solely Jewish based is absurd in the extreme. But you can't say that, because then you're called a Holocaust denier. No, I'm just not willing anymore to allow the Holocaust machine to create an intellectual framework that justifies Israeli crimes. The whole thing has to be attacked. You have to tear the whole edifice down and start from scratch. Fact-based recounting of what really happened during World War II and the total disenfranchisement of a Jewish state derived from the crimes of the Second World War. The Jewish state has proven itself incapable of coexisting with mankind, and it must be eliminated. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You can't justify this. If you couldn't let Nazi Germany survive, you can't let Zionist Israel survive. You have to view Israel in a couple of ways. One, there's the reality of Israel, and the other is the perception of Israel. And because perception can create its own reality, sometimes the perception of Israel is the more relevant frame of reference. The reality is, anybody who knows the truth about Israel, and believe me, everybody in the region knows the truth about Israel, knows that Israel has been posturing to a degree that is not sustainable or could be backed up by itself. Even the Israelis came to this realization in 2022 and 2023. They ran back-to-back exercises where they stress tested the IDF's ability to defend Israel from all threats. And at the end of the day, this is what happened. They got beat because they can't win. They don't have the ability to sustain. And none of those wars did Israel fight for a year. All these wars that they fought, they war gamed, would last or designed to last several months. And if Israel hadn't decisively defeated their enemies in that time period, then Israel would lose because they realized that it was economically unsustainable, politically unsustainable, and militarily unsustainable. Well, here we're well over a year now, and the Israeli system is collapsing in on itself. That's the reality of Israel, just how fragile Israel is. But because the United States had thrown its weight behind Israel, and because the European Union followed suit, Israel had the potential to posture on a grander scale. And as long as people believed it, then Israel could operate, in this theater of the absurd. That's what the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor was. That was proposed by Joe Biden on September 9th, I believe, at the G20 summit in India, immediately echoed by Bibi Netanyahu, who called it the greatest thing in Israeli history, in modern Israeli history. He said this is the most important date in Israel's history because on this date, Israel, graduated to being the world-class economic power that it always aspired to be, where it should be, etc. Perception. And this perception then allowed Saudi Arabia to, I guess, convince itself that normalizing relations with Israel could be not just justified, but sustainable, because the perception in the Middle East was that's what was necessary to survive long-term with the United States. But now the reality comes in. America is a diminishing power with whose stars on the retrograde. We're no longer the brightest star on the horizon. People aren't navigating to the American North Star. They're starting to set course to the BRICS North Star. That includes Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and other regional players in that direction. And two, because of October 7th and what's happened then, the Middle East, the India, Middle East, European Economic Corridor is never going to happen. This thing that was a facade anyways, this house of cards has collapsed and it will not be reborn. And so we shouldn't be talking about, people viewing Israel as anything other than what it is, a failed nation state. It has considerable military power, but that power is collapsing. It just gave its best non-nuclear shot against Iran, and that wasn't good enough. Nobody fears Israel anymore. I think people are more concerned about the collapse of Israel and what will come from that. I think most Arab nations are more concerned about what a Palestinian state would look like and what the ramifications would be with the creation of a Palestinian state for decades of the Arab world turning their back on Palestinian state aspirations. There's a lot of hard feelings out there right now. What the consequences would be regionally through the empowerment of the axis of resistance if it turns out to be the force that brought into being a Palestinian state. What would happen when Jerusalem becomes once again the center of the Islamic world? Will that prove to be a competition with Mecca and Medina, especially the way Mecca and Medina are currently being run by the Saudis? Could there be a new center of gravity in the Islamic world? Could we see the Shia star on the rise and the Sunni star on the decline? I mean, these are the things that the region's talking about right now. Not about Israel. Israel's a defeated nation. Israel's nothing. It's there, but it's hard to project going forward a scenario that has Israel returning to what it was. Those days are done.
Thank you for watching. The information in this video reveals truths that are often hidden from the public by mainstream media. Help us spread these facts by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with others. Together, we can counter the misinformation and bring real awareness to more people. Stay informed, stay aware, and see you in the next one.